The red sand stretched forever under 3 burning suns. Daiho wiped sweat from his face and watched the caravan move across the desert like a slow metal snake. His cargo ship hummed behind him, parked at the edge of the camp. He had been hired to carry supplies for the Kravik slavers. It was dirty work, but it paid well. In the frontier worlds, people did not ask too many questions about money. The Kravik were tall reptilian creatures with thick scales and cold yellow eyes. They controlled this part of the galaxy through fear and violence. Their empire had swallowed dozens of smaller civilizations. Daiho had seen their cruelty before, but he always looked away. A man could not save everyone. A man had to survive. But today was different. He saw her for the first time that morning. A young alien girl, maybe 20 in human years, dragged behind a massive 6-legged beast. The creature was called a Morvac, built like a living tank with armor plates and sharp horns. The girl was tied to it with glowing energy chains that burned her skin. When the beast walked, she stumbled. When she fell, it dragged her through the sharp sand. Her name was Hyejin, though Daiho did not know that yet. She belonged to a species called the Villani. They were peaceful people with blue skin and silver markings that glowed softly in the dark. Her markings were dim now, barely visible under layers of dirt and blood. Her clothes were torn. Her feet were raw and bleeding. The Kravik guards laughed when she fell. They placed bets on how long she would last. One guard, a massive warrior named Tovan, seemed to enjoy her suffering most. He was the caravan leader, covered in battle scars and decorated armor. He carried a heavy plasma rifle across his back and a curved blade at his hip. Daiho turned away. Not his business. Not his problem. He went to check his cargo containers, trying to focus on the job. But his eyes kept drifting back to the girl. She had stopped screaming on the 3rd day, one guard told another. Now she just endured. Silent. Broken. "You are staring again," said a voice in his ear. It was Minho, his ship's artificial intelligence. The AI spoke through a small device in Daiho's ear. "This is not wise." "I know," Daiho muttered. "The Kravik do not like curiosity. They especially do not like human curiosity." I said I know, but he kept watching anyway. The caravan stopped at midday when the heat became unbearable. Even the Kravik needed rest from the brutal suns. They set up camp in the shadow of tall rock formations. The prisoners were chained to metal posts. The girl was left attached to the Morvac, lying in the sand like a discarded toy. Daiho walked past her on his way to the water station. Up close, she looked even worse. Her breathing was shallow. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. The energy chains had burned deep marks into her wrists and ankles. No one had given her water in hours, maybe days. One of her eyes opened slightly. She looked at him. Just for a moment. There was no plea in that look. No hope, just acknowledgement. Another creature watching her die. Daiho kept walking. He filled his water container and returned to his ship. He sat in the cockpit and stared at the controls. "You are thinking about doing something stupid," Minho said. "No." "You are a terrible liar, Daiho. It is not my problem." "Correct. It is not your problem. The Villani girl is a prisoner of the Kravik Empire. Interfering would violate your transport contract. It would also likely result in your death." Daiho said nothing. "I am programmed to keep you alive," Minho continued. "I calculate a 97% chance of death if you interfere. Please do not interfere." "I was not planning to." "Again, you are a terrible liar." That evening, Daiho learned the girl's story from gossiping guards. Her name was Hyejin. She had been a fighter in the Villani resistance. 3 weeks ago, the Kravik raided her colony. They came for resources and slaves. Hyejin organized the defense. She killed 17 Kravik soldiers, including Tovan's younger brother. The Kravik captured her during the final assault. Tovan wanted her dead, but his commanders refused. She had information about other Villani hideouts. They needed her alive for interrogation, so Tovan found another way to make her suffer. He tied her to his Morvac and dragged her across 3 different desert worlds. 10 days so far. He planned to continue until she broke and gave up the locations. Or until she died. Whichever came first. The guards thought it was funny. Humans thought they were tough, one said, but they broke easy. Villani were even softer. The girl would talk soon. Or she would become food for desert scavengers. Daiho returned to his ship. He opened a bottle of cheap whiskey and poured a glass. His hands were shaking. He told himself it was from the heat. He knew it was a lie. You cannot save her, Minho said quietly. I know. You cannot even help her without dying. I know. Then why are you checking your weapons inventory? Daeho looked down. His hands had automatically opened the weapons locker. Inside were his plasma pistol, combat knife, and emergency rifle. Standard equipment for frontier traders. The galaxy was a dangerous place. He closed the locker. I am not doing anything, he said. Good, that is very sensible. But that night, Daeho could not sleep. He lay in his bunk and stared at the ceiling. He kept seeing those eyes empty, accepting death. He had seen that look before, on his own face years ago when he was the one who needed saving. Someone had helped him then. A stranger with no reason to care. That stranger died for it. Daeho lived. He promised himself he would pay it forward someday. He had broken that promise 100 times. It was easier to look away, safer. Outside, the desert wind howled against the ship's hull. In the distance, Daeho heard the Morvac's heavy breathing. And something else. A small sound. A whimper. The girl was still alive out there, still suffering. And the morning would bring more of the same. And the day after that, until she finally broke or died, Daeho sat up. He pulled on his boots. He checked his weapons again. Please tell me you are just going for a walk, Minho said. Just a walk. You are going to get us both killed. Probably. I hate you sometimes. I know. Daeho opened the ship's door and stepped into the desert night. The 3 moons cast long shadows across the sand. The Kravik camp was quiet except for 2 guards on watch. They were drinking and laughing. Not paying attention, he walked toward the Morvac. Toward the girl. Toward a choice he could not take back. His heart pounded. His mouth was dry. But his feet kept moving. Some promises had to be kept. Even the stupid ones. Daeho did not approach the girl that night. He was not ready to die yet. Instead, he went to Tovan's tent. It was a large structure at the center of camp, decorated with battle trophies and captured weapons. 2 guards stood at the entrance, but they let him pass. Humans were annoying but not threatening, not worth killing unless they caused trouble. Tovan sat inside on a pile of cushions, eating roasted meat and drinking dark liquid from a metal cup. He was even bigger up close, nearly 7 feet tall, with scars covering his face and arms, his yellow eyes fixed on Daeho like a predator watching prey. The human cargo hauler, Tovan said. His voice sounded like gravel grinding together. You want something? I want to buy the prisoner, Daeho said. His voice was steady, but his hands were sweating. Tovan stopped eating. For a moment, there was silence. Then he laughed. It was a deep, cruel sound that made Daeho's skin crawl. Buy her? You want to buy my prize? I will pay well. Name your price. Tovan stood up. He was so tall that his head nearly touched the tent ceiling. Everything has a price, human. But not her. She killed my brother. She will suffer for that. Suffering cannot be bought. I will pay triple her value as a slave, Darno. 5 times, Karanno. My entire cargo shipment. Everything in my ship. It is worth 50,000 credits. Tovan moved closer. Daeho could smell the meat on his breath. You do not understand. This is not about money. This is about honor. About revenge. About sending a message to every Villani who thinks they can resist the Kravik Empire. She is just one girl. She killed 17 of my warriors. Tovan's voice rose to a roar. She made my family look weak. Now I will make her people watch her die slowly. And they will remember what happens when they fight back. Daeho met his eyes. Let her go. The tent went silent. Even the guards at the entrance turned to stare. Tovan tilted his head. Did you just give me an order, human? It was a request. It sounded like an order. Tovan gestured to his guards. Teach this soft human about making requests. The beating was professional and thorough. The guards used fists and boots, careful not to kill, but making sure the lesson hurt. They worked him over for 5 minutes, then threw him out of the tent into the sand. Daeho lay there, tasting blood, counting broken ribs. At least 3, maybe 4. You are lucky, one guard said. The captain is in a good mood. Usually he kills humans who annoy him. They walked away laughing. Daeho crawled back to his ship. Every movement sent pain shooting through his body. Minho opened the door remotely and extended a medical arm to help him inside. I have assessed your injuries, Minho said. 3 broken ribs, multiple contusions, possible internal bleeding. You need a medical facility. No hospitals nearby. Daeho coughed blood. Then you need to rest. and you need to stop doing stupid things. Probably. The ship's medical system injected him with painkillers and began treating his wounds. Daiho lay on the medical bed staring at the ceiling. His body hurt, but his mind was racing. Tavon would not sell her. That meant buying was impossible, which left only one option. He would have to steal her. I know what you are thinking, Minho said, and it is even more stupid than trying to buy her. I am open to better ideas. Leave. Fulfill your contract. Forget about the girl. Live a long life. I cannot do that. Why not? You do not know her. She is not your responsibility. The galaxy is full of suffering. You cannot fix all of it. Daiho was quiet for a moment. When I was 20, I was captured by pirates. They were going to sell me to labor camps. A stranger helped me escape. She died doing it. I never even learned her name. That was different. How? That was you. This is someone else. That is exactly why I have to help. Minho made a sound like a sigh, though artificial intelligences did not actually sigh. You are impossible. I need you to scan the camp. Find the weak points. Guard rotations. Weapons placements, everything. You are really going to do this? Yes. We are going to die. Maybe. I want it noted that I strongly disagreed with this plan. Noted. The next night, Daiho moved carefully through the camp. The painkillers made everything feel distant and soft, but they also let him move without crying out. The guards were drinking again. They always drank after the sun set. Alcohol helped them sleep in the terrible heat. He found Hyejin still chained to the Morvac. The beast was sleeping, its massive body rising and falling with slow breaths. The girl was unconscious, lying in the sand. For a moment, Daiho thought she was dead. Then he saw her chest move slightly. He knelt beside her and pulled out his medical kit. He could not free her yet, not without raising alarms. But he could treat her wounds. He worked quickly, applying antibiotics and healing gel to the worst injuries. He gave her water through a tube, letting it drip slowly into her mouth. Her eyes opened. They focused on him with difficulty. She tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. Shh, Daiho said quietly. Do not talk. Save your strength. Why? The word was barely audible. Because someone needs to. She stared at him like he was insane. Maybe he was. Then her eyes closed again and she drifted back into unconsciousness. But before she faded, he heard her whisper something. It sounded like coordinates. Numbers and letters. A location. Daiho memorized them and slipped away into the darkness. Back in his ship, he told Minho what he heard. Those are stellar coordinates, Minho said after analyzing them. A system in the outer rim. Uninhabited according to official records. She was trying to tell me something before she passed out. Probably the location of other Villani refugees. The information Tovan is torturing her to obtain. Which means we definitely cannot leave her. I was afraid you would say that. Daiho spent the next day planning. He studied guard movements. He noted when shifts changed. He watched the Morvac's behavior, learning its patterns. The beast slept deeply but woke instantly at loud noises. The energy chains could only be released with a control device that Tovan wore on his belt, unless they were cut with a high-powered plasma torch. Daiho had one in his ship's repair kit. It was designed for cutting through damaged hull plating. It could cut through energy chains too, though the process would take 30 seconds. 30 very loud, very obvious seconds he would need a distraction. What kind of distraction? Minho asked. A big one. Please be more specific. The kind that makes everyone look the other way. You're going to cause trouble, aren't you? So much trouble. That evening, another human trader arrived at the camp. Her name was Jiwon, an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She hauled medical supplies to frontier worlds. Daiho had met her before at various trade stations. She was tough and practical, someone who understood how the galaxy really worked. She found him checking his weapons for the third time. You have that look, she said. What look? The look that says you are about to do something heroic and stupid. She sat down on his ship's ramp. Let me guess. The Villani girl? Daiho said nothing. I thought so. Jiwon shook her head. Every few years, a young human sees something horrible and decides to fix it. Usually ends with them dead. The galaxy does not reward heroes. I know. But you are going to try anyway. Yes. Jiwon was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up. When? Tomorrow night, during the sandstorm. The weather report says a big one is coming. I know. Perfect cover. You will need help. I cannot ask you to. You are not asking. I am offering. She looked toward the camp where Hyojin lay suffering. I have daughters. If they were out there, I would want someone to try. She paused. Even if it was stupid. Daeho felt something loosen in his chest. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. We might both die tomorrow. Probably. Humans, she muttered. Always so dramatic, but she smiled when she said it. The sandstorm hit 2 hours after sunset. It came from the west like a wall of angry red dust, blotting out the moons and stars. The wind howled like a living thing, shaking the camp's tents and making the Morvacs bellow in distress. Perfect conditions for a rescue. Or a disaster. Daeho wore a breathing mask and protective goggles. He carried his plasma pistol in one hand and the cutting torch in the other. His broken ribs screamed with every movement, but the painkillers kept him functional. Barely. All guards have retreated to their shelters. Minho reported through his earpiece. Visibility is less than 3 meters. However, this also means you cannot see threats until they are very close. I will manage. Famous last words. Daeho moved through the storm like a ghost. The sand stung his exposed skin and made every breath a struggle, but it also made him invisible. He reached the Morvac without being seen. The massive beast was huddled against the wind, its armored hide protecting it from the worst of the storm. Hyojin lay curled at its feet, barely conscious. The energy chains glowed faintly in the darkness. Daeho knelt beside her and activated the cutting torch. The plasma flame burned bright blue, cutting through the storm's darkness. He pressed it against the first chain. The metal began to melt immediately, but slowly. Too slowly. 10 seconds passed. 20. The torch screamed as it worked, but the storm's howl covered most of the sound. 30 seconds. The first chain snapped. He moved to the second chain on her other wrist. 2 guards approaching from the east, Minho warned. They cannot see you yet, but they are heading your direction. Daeho worked faster. The torch cut through the second chain just as voices emerged from the storm. 2 Kravik guards checking on the prisoners. They saw the blue plasma flame first, then Daeho crouched over Hyojin. 1 guard raised his weapon. Daeho shot him first, the plasma bolt catching him in the chest. The guard went down hard. The second guard roared and charged. Daeho rolled sideways, his ribs sending fresh waves of agony through his body. He fired twice more. The second guard fell, but the damage was done. The shots had been loud. Even over the storm, they would draw attention. Alarm has been raised, Minho said. Multiple hostiles converging on your position. Daeho cut through the ankle chains as fast as the torch would allow. The moment Hyojin was free, he pulled her up and over his shoulder. She weighed almost nothing. Too light for someone her size. Starvation and dehydration had turned her into skin and bones. He ran. Moving through the sandstorm while carrying another person was like trying to run underwater. His legs burned. His lungs ached. His ribs felt like they were tearing through his skin. But he kept moving. Shapes emerged from the storm. More guards. Daeho fired without aiming, just trying to keep them back. Someone shot at him. A plasma bolt hissed past his head, close enough to feel the heat. Then an explosion shook the camp. A massive fireball rose into the storm-dark sky. What was that? Daeho gasped. That was me. Jiwon's voice came through his earpiece. I may have accidentally damaged several Kravik fuel cells. Very tragic. More explosions followed. The guards stopped chasing Daeho and ran toward the fires instead. In the chaos, he reached his ship. The ramp was already lowered, lights blazing through the storm. He stumbled inside. The ramp closed behind him, sealing out the sand and wind. He laid Hyojin on the medical bed and strapped her in. Medical systems engaging, Minho reported. She is in critical condition. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, internal bleeding, and extensive burns. She needs a proper medical facility. Will she survive the trip? Maybe if we leave right now. Start the engines. The ship's drives roared to life. Through the cockpit window, Daeho saw figures running through the storm. One was much larger than the others. Tovan. The Kravik captain was charging toward the ship, firing his heavy rifle. Plasma bolts hammered against the hull shields. Shields at 70%, Minho warned. We need to leave now. Lifting off. The ship rose into the storm, fighting against the wind. More shots hit the hull. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit displays. Then they broke through the storm layer and into the clear night air above. Multiple Kravik ships powering up, Minho said. They will pursue. How long until they catch us? Approximately 4 minutes. Daho pushed the throttle forward, aiming for orbit. The ship climbed fast, but not fast enough. Behind them, 3 Kravik fighters launched from the camp. They were faster and better armed than his cargo hauler. Can we outrun them? No, but I have been calculating alternate strategies. Such as? We could surrender. Not an option. Then we fight and probably die. Better option. The first fighter opened fire as they reached the upper atmosphere. Laser cannons raked across the hull, tearing through the rear cargo bay. Alarm screamed. More warning lights, cargo bay decompressed, Minho reported. We are venting fuel. At current rate, we will run dry before reaching the next system. One crisis at a time. Daho threw the ship into a hard spin, dodging another burst of fire. He was not a fighter pilot. He was a cargo hauler. But he had survived the frontier for 15 years by being stubborn and lucky. He hoped both would hold out a little longer. The ship broke orbit with 2 fighters still pursuing. The third had turned back, probably damaged by debris from Daho's cargo containers that had exploded out of the decompressed bay. Jump drive charging, Minho said. 30 seconds, a lifetime in combat. Daho zigzagged through space using every trick he knew. The fighters stayed close, pouring fire into his ship. Shields failed. Hull plates melted. The ship's frame groaned under the stress. 20 seconds. More impacts. The port engine exploded, sending the ship into a spin. Daho fought the controls, trying to stabilize. They were tumbling through space now, completely vulnerable. 10 seconds. One of the fighters moved in for the kill, lining up a final shot. Daho saw the cannon charging, saw the pilot's scaled face through the cockpit window. This was it. The end. Then Jiwan's ship appeared from nowhere and rammed the fighter. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire and debris. No, Daho shouted. Jump drive ready, Minho said quietly. We need to go now. But Jiwan, she made her choice. Do not waste it, jump now. Daho slammed his fist on the jump control. Space twisted, reality folded, and the ship lurched into faster-than-light travel. The last fighter tried to follow but was too slow. It vanished behind them as they jumped away. In the medical bay, Hyejin's eyes fluttered open. She looked around in confusion, not understanding where she was or what had happened. Then she saw Daho through the cockpit door, covered in blood and burns, keeping them alive through sheer will. She tried to speak but could not. So she just watched this strange human who had saved her for no reason that made sense. In her culture, such things did not happen. Strangers did not risk death for each other. It was insane, but humans were insane. She was learning that now. Daho slumped in the pilot seat, exhausted and hurting. His ship was dying. His friend was dead. And he was now an enemy of the Kravik Empire with a half-dead alien girl in his medical bay. Well, Minho said after a long silence, that could have gone worse. How? We could all be dead. Jiwan is dead, yes, because she chose to save us. She chose to be a hero. The AI paused. Humans do that, even when it makes no logical sense. Daho closed his eyes. The painkillers were wearing off and everything hurt. But worse than the physical pain was the weight of Jiwan's sacrifice. Another stranger who died so he could live, another debt he could never repay. Where are we going? He asked. The nearest human outpost is Kepler 7. 2 days at current speed, assuming we do not run out of fuel first. Will we run out? Probably. Then we better hope the engine holds together. It will not. Then we better hope harder. Through the medical bay window, Daho saw Hyejin watching him. Her eyes were different now. No longer empty. No longer accepting death. There was something else there. Question. Wonder. Maybe even hope. He had saved one life, lost another, gained an enemy empire, and now he was running on fumes toward a distant outpost that might not even help them. But somehow, impossibly, he did not regret it. Not yet anyway. The ship limped into Kepler 7 system 43 hours later, trailing smoke and debris. The fuel gauge read 0. The engines were held together by hope and emergency patches. Daho had not slept in 2 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jiwan's ship exploding. Kepler 7 Control, this is cargo vessel Morningstar requesting emergency docking, Minho broadcast. We have critical damage and a medical emergency. The reply came after a long pause. Morningstar, this is Kepler 7, we read your damage. You are cleared for emergency landing at Bay 3. Medical team will be standing by. They sound nervous, Daho said. They should be. 3 Kravik warships just entered the system behind us. Daho's blood went cold. How close? Close enough. They will reach orbit in approximately 20 minutes. The ship dropped through Kepler-7's atmosphere like a falling brick. The control surfaces were barely responding. Daho fought the controls all the way down, using the last of their maneuvering fuel to keep them from crashing. They hit the landing pad hard enough to crack the remaining hull plates, but they were down, alive. A team of humans rushed toward the ship. Daho opened the ramp and stumbled out. A woman in an administrator's uniform met him. She was in her 40s with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. "I am Yuna, colony administrator," she said. "Where is the medical emergency?" "Inside, Villani female." "Critical condition." Medical staff rushed past him into the ship. Yuna studied Daho's face. "You look like you have been through a war." "Something like that. And those Kravik ships following you?" "They might be related to that war." Yuna's expression hardened. "My office. Now." 10 minutes later, Daho sat in a small office while Yuna stood at the window watching the sky. 3 bright dots were visible even in daylight, the Kravik warships taking up orbit around the colony. "Explain," Yuna said. Daho told her everything. The caravan, the torture, the rescue, Jiwan's sacrifice. When he finished, Yuna was silent for a long moment. "You just declared war on the Kravik Empire to save one alien girl," she finally said. "I know how it sounds. It sounds insane." She turned to face him. "Do you understand what you have done? This colony has 200 people. We have mining equipment and civilian ships, no weapons, no military, and now we have a Kravik fleet in orbit demanding we hand you over. I'm sorry." "Sorry?" Yuna laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Sorry does not help when they start bombing us from orbit. I will surrender myself. Maybe they will leave the colony alone. They want the girl too, and probably everyone who helped you. They will make an example of this place." She sat down heavily in her chair. "I have to think about my people." "I understand." But before Yuna could say more, an alarm sounded throughout the colony. A voice came over the speakers. "Administrator Yuna to medical immediately." "Administrator Yuna to medical," they ran. The medical facility was small, just 6 beds and basic equipment. Heijin lay on one bed, surrounded by monitors and tubes. A doctor stood over her, a Korean man in his 30s named Taejin. "What is wrong?" Yuna asked. "Everything," Taejin said. "This girl should be dead. The level of trauma she has endured would kill most species." "But that is not the urgent issue." "Then what is?" Taejin pulled up a scan on a monitor. "I found something inside her, surgically implanted near her heart. It is a data storage device." Daho moved closer. The scan showed a small crystalline object wrapped in protective tissue. "What kind of data?" "I do not know yet, but it is protected by Villani bioencryption. Only her genetic signature can unlock it." "Can you remove it without killing her?" "Maybe, if she survives the next few hours." Taejin looked at the monitors. "I am giving her everything I have, but she is so weak. I do not know if she will make it." Hyejin's eyes opened slightly. She looked at Daho and tried to speak. He leaned closer. "What did she say?" Taejin asked. "I'm not sure. It sounded like evidence." "Evidence of what?" Before anyone could answer, the communication system crackled to life. A deep, harsh voice filled the room. "Tovan, human colony, you harbor criminals who attacked Kravik forces and stole Kravik property. You have 1 hour to surrender them both. If you refuse, we will destroy your colony from orbit. You cannot fight us. You cannot hide from us. Surrender or die." The transmission ended. Yuna stood frozen. Taejin looked sick. Daho felt the weight of all his choices crushing down on him. "I will go to them," he said quietly. "Right now. Take the girl too. Maybe that will satisfy them." "No," Hyejin whispered from the bed. Everyone turned to stare at her. She was awake, her eyes clearer than before. "Cannot let them have data." "What data?" Yuna asked. Hyejin tried to sit up but was too weak. Taejin helped her, adjusting the bed. She pointed at the scan showing the crystal. "Evidence. War crimes. Genocide, millions dead." The room went silent. "The Kravik have been systematically exterminating the Villani," she continued, each word taking enormous effort. "Killing civilians. Destroying colonies. We documented everything. This crystal contains proof. Names, dates, locations, video evidence." "Why did you keep it inside you?" Daho asked. "Nowhere else he was safe." If I died, the Truthy would die too. She looked at him. Why did you save me? Because it was the right thing to do. She studied his face like he was speaking an alien language. No one does the right thing. Not for strangers. Not when it costs everything. Humans do, Taejin said softly. Sometimes we are stupid that way. Hyejin almost smiled. Then her eyes closed again, exhausted. Yuna paced the room. If what she says is true, that data could change everything. The galactic community would have to respond. Even species that trade with the Kravik would face pressure to cut ties. But only if we can get the data out, Daeho said. And broadcast it before the Kravik destroy us. Can we transmit it from here? Yuna asked Taejin. If I can extract it without killing her, maybe. But our communication array is basic. We could send it to nearby systems, but it would take time to reach anyone important. How much time? Hours, maybe days. Yuna looked out the window at the Kravik ships. We do not have days. We have 45 minutes. An emergency meeting was called. Every adult in the colony crammed into the small assembly hall. Yuna explained the situation. The Kravik ultimatum. The evidence. The choice. We can surrender the fugitives and hope the Kravik spare us, Yuna said. Or we can refuse and fight to protect them and the evidence they carry. Fight? Someone asked. With what? We are miners and farmers, not soldiers. We have mining equipment, another voice said. It was a man named Kyung-ho, the colony's safety officer. Plasma drills. Excavation charges. We could improvise. Against warships? Someone else protested. That is suicide, maybe, Kyung-ho agreed. But I did not come to the frontier to bow to tyrants. I came here to be free. Arguments erupted. Some wanted to surrender. Others wanted to fight. Still others wanted to evacuate, though there was nowhere to run. Daeho stood up. This is my fault. I brought this on you. Let me fix it. Give me and the girl to them. No, Yuna said. Everyone went quiet. No, Yuna repeated. I have been thinking about this. About what we are as humans. About what we stand for. She looked around the room. The Kravik think we are weak because we have mercy. Because we help strangers. Because we care about things beyond profit and survival. Maybe they are right. Maybe caring is weakness. She paused. But I would rather be weak and human than strong and Kravik. I would rather die standing up than live on my knees. She looked at Daeho. This man risked everything to save one girl. Just one because it was right. Now we have a chance to save millions by protecting the evidence of genocide. How can we do less? We will all die, someone said. Maybe, Yuna acknowledged. But we will die as humans. And maybe, just maybe, we will get that evidence out first. Maybe other species will see what we did here and remember that some things are worth dying for. A vote was taken. It was not unanimous, but it was clear. The colony would stand and fight. Kyung-ho started organizing defenses. Taejin worked on extracting the data crystal. Engineers began uploading the transmission equipment. And Daeho, exhausted and broken, watched humans prepare to die for a stranger and a cause they had just learned about. Your species is insane, Minho said in his ear. I know, Daeho replied. And yet I find myself proud? Is that the correct word? For an AI to feel pride? Apparently humans are contagious. 20 minutes left. The Kravik ships moved into bombardment position. Down on the ground, 200 humans prepared to fight a fleet with mining tools and hope. It was going to be a very long day. The Kravik bombardment began exactly 1 hour after their ultimatum. The first shots were warnings, plasma bolts that vaporized empty buildings at the colony's edge. Demonstration of power, a final chance to surrender. Yuna stood on the colony's command center roof watching the destruction. She activated the colony-wide communication system. This is Administrator Yuna. The Kravik have begun their attack. Everyone to defensive positions. Engineers keep working on that transmission. The moment we get the data extracted, we send it everywhere. Every system we can reach. Make them hear what happened to the Villani people. Below, the colonists moved with surprising order. Kyung-ho had spent the past hour turning civilians into something resembling a militia. They were not soldiers, but they were determined. That would have to be enough. In the medical facility, Taejin worked frantically over Hyejin. The extraction surgery was delicate and dangerous. One wrong move and the data crystal would self-destruct, taking the evidence with it. And possibly killing Hyejin in the process. How much longer? Daeho asked, standing beside the operating table. I am almost there. Maybe 5 minutes. Another explosion shook the building. Closer this time. The Kravik were done with warnings. Daho's communication device crackled. All personnel, Kravik dropships incoming. They are landing ground forces at the northern perimeter. They want the girl alive, Daho realized. They are not just going to bomb us from orbit. They are coming in person. Then we fight them in person, Kyung-ho's voice came through. Defensive teams 1 through 4 moved to intercept. Daho wanted to help fight, but Taejin needed protection. If the Kravik reached the medical facility, everything was lost. He checked his plasma pistol and positioned himself at the door. Outside, the first Kravik soldiers hit the ground. There were at least 50 of them, heavily armed and armored. They moved through the colony streets like a predatory tide, shooting anything that moved. But the humans were ready. Mining charges, repurposed as improvised explosives, detonated under the first squad. 4 Kravik went down. The others scattered, seeking cover. From rooftops and windows, colonists opened fire with plasma drills and cutting torches modified into weapons. They were crude and short-range, but against unshielded targets they were lethal. A Kravik warrior charged a building where 3 colonists were positioned. One colonist, a young woman named Nari who worked in engineering, dropped a mining claw from the roof. The heavy machinery crushed the warrior instantly. "Sorry," she yelled. Not sorry. But the Kravik adapted quickly. They spread out, used superior tactics, returned fire with military precision. Colonists started falling. A man named Jinho, who ran the colony's water treatment plant, was hit by a plasma bolt and died instantly. His wife Seoyeon screamed and kept firing from her position. "We cannot hold them," Kyung-ho reported. "They are too well trained. Too well equipped. Buy us time," Yuna replied. "That is all we need. Just a little more time." In the medical bay, Taejin finally extracted the data crystal. It was small, no bigger than a fingernail, glowing with soft blue light. "I have it." "Transfer it to the communication array," Daho said. "Now." Taejin ran to a computer terminal and inserted the crystal into a reader. Data began flowing onto the screens, images, videos, documents, all of it horrifying. Villani cities burning, mass graves. Kravik soldiers executing civilians, children, everyone. "By all the stars," Taejin whispered. "They killed millions." "Send it," Daho said. "Send it everywhere." "Transmission beginning," the computer reported. "Broadcasting on all frequencies. Uploading to relay networks. Estimated time to full distribution, 40 minutes. 40 minutes. They had to survive 40 more minutes. The Kravik broke through the outer defenses. They poured into the colony center, overwhelming defensive positions through sheer numbers and firepower. Kyung-ho's militia fought like cornered animals, using every trick and tactic they could imagine. They collapsed buildings on advancing enemies. They flooded streets with chemical foam from fire suppression systems. They fought from underground tunnels and rooftops and anywhere they could gain advantage, but it was not enough. The Kravik were unstoppable. Tavan himself led the assault on the medical facility. He moved like a force of nature, plasma rifle in one hand, curved blade in the other. 2 colonists tried to stop him. He killed them both without slowing down. Daho met him at the medical facility entrance. "You cannot have her." Tovan actually smiled. "The foolish human. I was hoping to face you again. I am not much of a fighter." "I know. This will be quick," Tovan charged. Daho fired his plasma pistol, but Tovan's armor absorbed the shots. The Kravik captain swung his blade in a massive arc. Daho barely dodged, the weapon missing his head by inches. He rolled and fired again, aiming for joints in the armor. One shot connected, burning into Tovan's shoulder. The Kravik roared in pain but did not stop. He kicked Daho in the chest, sending him flying backward into the medical facility. Daho's already broken ribs screamed. He could not breathe, could not move. Tovan loomed over him. "You should have stayed out of this, human. Now you die for nothing. I will take the girl. I will destroy the evidence. And your colony will be erased from history." He raised his blade, a plasma bolt hit him in the side. Tovan staggered. Another bolt. Then another. Hyejin stood in the doorway holding a weapon she could barely lift. She was still weak, barely able to stand, but her aim was true. She fired again and again, each shot finding gaps in Tovan's armor. "You killed my people," she said, her voice stronger than it had been since her rescue. "You tortured me. You destroyed everything I loved. And you will not win." Tovan laughed through the pain. "One weak Villani girl? You cannot stop me." "No," a new voice said. "But I can. Kyung-ho appeared behind Tovan carrying a plasma drill. He activated it and drove the spinning bit into Tovan's back. The Kravik captain's armor held for a moment, then failed. The drill bit through scale and flesh. Tovan fell, but there was no time to celebrate. More Kravik soldiers were coming. The medical facility was surrounded. The transmission, Daeho gasped. How much time? 20 minutes, Taejin reported. We will not last 20 minutes. Then we last as long as we can. The colonists formed a final defensive line around the medical facility. Everyone who could hold a weapon did. Miners and teachers and engineers and cooks, all of them standing together against impossible odds. The Kravik began their final assault. And then, impossible, miraculous, the sky lit up with new arrivals. Ships dropped out of FTL in orbit. Dozens of them. Sleek human warships with weapons hot and shields raised. The lead ship was massive. A heavy cruiser with the name Indomitable painted on its hull. A voice broadcast across all frequencies. This is Admiral Soo-hyun of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. All hostile forces stand down immediately or face destruction. The Kravik soldiers hesitated. In orbit, their warships suddenly found themselves outnumbered and outgunned. Human fleet, the Kravik commander transmitted. This is an internal Kravik matter. You have no authority here. Wrong, Admiral Soo-hyun replied. We have all the authority we need. You are attacking a human colony. You are committing war crimes. And we have the evidence to prove it. Evidence that is currently being transmitted to every civilization in the galaxy. On the ground, the colonists watched in stunned silence as human marines began landing. Professional soldiers in combat armor, taking positions around the colony. The Kravik realized they were now trapped between armed civilians and military forces. One by one, they began surrendering. Daeho sat against a wall, bleeding and exhausted, watching it all happen. It did not feel real. It felt like a dream. How? He asked Minho. How did they get here so fast? The transmission, Minho explained. When we broadcast the evidence, we also sent a distress signal. Every human ship within 3 systems received it. The fleet was conducting exercises 2 systems away. Admiral Soo-hyun saw the evidence and ordered immediate response. Because of one girl. Because of what one girl represents. Because of what you represented when you saved her. Because humans cannot stand by and watch injustice. Hyejin collapsed beside Daeho, too weak to stand anymore. They sat there together, 2 strangers who had somehow changed the galaxy. Thank you, she whispered. You already thanked me. Not enough. Never enough. You gave everything for someone you did not know. That is what humans do, Daeho said. Then he smiled through the pain. We are stupid that way. Around them, the colony began to breathe again. The fighting was over. The evidence was out. The galaxy would see what the Kravik had done, and nothing would ever be the same. Yuna found Daeho an hour later. The Admiral wants to speak with you. Apparently you started an interstellar incident. I just saved one person. You saved millions, Yuna corrected. The evidence is spreading. 17 different civilizations have already condemned the Kravik Empire. More are joining every hour. The Galactic Council is calling an emergency session. Daeho looked at the colony around him. Buildings damaged. People wounded, some dead. All because he could not walk away from suffering. Was it worth it? He asked. Yuna thought about that. Ask me in 100 years. When the history books are written. When they talk about how everything changed because one human decided that mercy matters more than survival. She helped him to his feet. But right now, today, yes, it was worth it. Daeho did not feel like a hero. He felt tired and broken and sad for all the people who died. The Galactic Council met in emergency session 3 days after the battle at E. Kepler 7. Representatives from 47 different civilizations gathered in the massive station that served as neutral ground for all species. The council chamber was designed to accommodate wildly different biology. Some representatives breathed water, others methane, others nothing at all. But today they all came together to discuss one thing: humanity and the Villani evidence. Hyejin stood before them, still weak but determined. Medical nanobots worked constantly to heal her injuries, but the emotional scars ran deeper than any technology could reach. Beside her stood Daeho, uncomfortable in formal clothes. He had been called as a witness, though he did not understand why his testimony mattered. The evidence is undeniable. The Villani ambassador, an older woman named Minseo, addressed the council. The Kravik Empire has systematically murdered over 3 million Villani civilians. They destroyed 17 of our colonies. They hunted us like animals. And they documented it all, confident no one would ever see. Holographic displays filled the chamber. Images of the genocide, videos that made representatives look away, documents signed by Kravik military leaders ordering the extermination. It was comprehensive and damning. The Kravik representative, a different warrior named Vorath who replaced Tovan's faction, stood to speak. The Empire does not deny these events occurred. However, we maintain they were justified military actions against a rebellious, "You murdered children," Hyejin interrupted, her voice shaking with controlled rage. "I watched you kill a 5-year-old girl because she was crying too loud. I watched you burn homes with families inside. You are not soldiers. You are monsters." "Order," the council speaker called, a crystalline being whose voice resonated like music. All will have their turn to speak. But the damage was done. Around the chamber, representatives whispered to each other. The evidence was too clear. Too horrible. Even species that maintained trade relationships with the Kravik looked uncomfortable. Admiral Soo-hyun stood next. She was an imposing woman in her 50s, wearing the dark blue uniform of the human expeditionary fleet. "The human position is simple. We will not trade with genocide. We will not negotiate with murderers, and we will offer protection to any species fleeing Kravik persecution." "A bold statement," Vorath replied. "But humans are a minor species. You have been in the galactic community for less than 50 years. You lack the authority to dictate policy." "We have the authority of conscience," Soo-hyun said, something the Kravik seemed to lack entirely. "You speak of conscience while harboring a criminal who attacked Kravik forces. You mean the man who saved an innocent girl from torture?" Soo-hyun gestured to Daeho. "Yes, we harbor him proudly. Because when he saw injustice, he acted. He did not calculate profit. He did not check treaties. He simply helped someone who needed help. That is what humans do. That is what humans claim to do." A new voice entered the debate. It came from the Torvan Collective representative, a spider-like being whose species controlled significant trade routes. "But we have observed human history. You are a violent species. You have wars among yourselves. You colonize aggressively. Why should we trust your moral judgment?" Daeho found himself standing before he realized he was moving. "May I speak?" The council speaker considered. "You are not an official representative. I am the man at the center of this situation. I think I have earned the right to speak. Proceed." "Briefly." Daeho looked around the chamber at dozens of alien faces, some curious, some hostile, some simply waiting. "I am not a good man," he began. "I have done questionable things to survive in the frontier. I have looked away from suffering because it was easier. I am not special or heroic. I am just a cargo hauler who made one decision." He paused. "I saw a girl being tortured and I could not walk away. That is all. There was no grand philosophy, no strategic planning. Just a simple choice between helping and not helping. And that choice cost lives," Vorath pointed out. "Human colonists died because of your interference. They died because they chose to stand for something," Daeho corrected. "They voted democracy, freedom, human values. They could have surrendered me. They could have looked away like I had been doing for years. But they chose to fight for a stranger and a cause they had just learned about." His voice grew stronger. "You ask why you should trust human moral judgment? Because when humans see injustice, we cannot help but try to fix it, even when it is stupid, even when it costs everything. That is who we are." Silence filled the chamber. Then Min Seo, the Villani ambassador, spoke. "Before this human intervened, my people were dying in silence. The galaxy knew about the Kravik expansion but did nothing. It was not profitable to interfere. It was not strategic. And so 3 million Villani died while everyone watched." Her voice broke. "One human changed that. One stubborn, foolish human who could not walk away. And now the galaxy must respond because the truth can no longer be hidden." The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The evidence was too clear. The public pressure too strong. 17 civilizations had already cut ties with the Kravik Empire before the council even met. More would follow. By the time the session ended, the Kravik faced comprehensive sanctions. Their trade networks were collapsing. Their military expansion was frozen, and criminal warrants were issued for every commander involved in the genocide, including Tovan. It was a diplomatic earthquake. After the session, Daeho found himself surrounded by reporters from a dozen different species. They all wanted to know about the human who started an interstellar incident. He tried to leave, but they followed. Finally, Admiral Suyun rescued him, pulling him into a private transport. "You are famous," she said as they lifted off. "Every human in the galaxy knows your name now. And most aliens too. I did not want to be famous. Too late. You are the face of human intervention. The proof that our values matter," she smiled. "Politicians hate you because you make everything complicated. But ordinary people love you because you did what they wish they could do. I just helped one person. You keep saying that, but that one person carried evidence that will save millions more. The Villani refugees in hiding are coming forward now. Other species oppressed by the Kravik are requesting human protection. You did not just save He-Jin, you changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The transport took them back to Kepler-7, which had become an unlikely center of galactic attention. News crews from 40 different civilizations were stationed there. The colony that had been hours from destruction was now the most famous place in human space. Yuna met them at the landing pad. She looked exhausted. "I have requests from 16 different species asking if Kepler-7 can house refugees. We are a mining colony of 200 people. We do not have room for thousands." "Then we build room," Suhyun said. "The fleet will provide resources. This colony stood for human values. Now humanity will support it. It will change everything," Yuna said. "We came here to mine ore and live quietly. Now we are at the center of a galactic crisis." "Yes," Suhyun agreed. "That is the price of doing what is right. It is never convenient, never easy, but it is necessary." In the medical facility, Hyejin was recovering. Taejin reported that she would make a full physical recovery, though the psychological trauma would take much longer to heal. Daeho visited her that evening. "You should be resting," he said. "I cannot rest. Too much to do." She was sitting up in bed working on a data pad. "I am writing testimony for the Kravik trials, making sure every crime is documented, every victim remembered. You do not have to do this alone." "Yes, I do. I am the one who survived. I have to speak for those who cannot." She looked at him. "You understand that. You could have walked away, but you did not. You spoke through your actions. I am not comfortable being a symbol. Neither am I. But we do not get to choose. We can only do what needs to be done." She set aside the data pad. "I have been studying human culture since we arrived, trying to understand why you helped me. And I found something interesting." "What?" "In most galactic civilizations, the tribe is everything. You help your family, your clan, your species, but humans extend the concept of tribe to include strangers. You see someone suffering and think, that could be me, instead of, that is not my concern. It is illogical, inefficient, and apparently revolutionary." Daeho considered that. "I never thought about it that way. I just did what felt right. That is exactly my point. What feels right to humans is radical to the rest of the galaxy." She smiled, the first real smile he had seen from her. "You are going to change everything. Not through force, not through technology, but through this strange idea that everyone deserves help. Even strangers. Even enemies, and that sounds exhausting, it is. But it is also beautiful." Later that night, Daeho stood outside the colony looking up at the stars. Minho's voice spoke in his ear. "I have been analyzing galactic news networks. Your action has spawned what they are calling the human paradox. Multiple species are studying human psychology, trying to understand why we behave illogically. What are they finding? That our illogical behavior creates unexpected strategic advantages. By helping others, we create allies. By standing for principles." 6 months had passed since the battle at Kepler-7. The galaxy looked different now. The Kravik Empire was collapsing under sanctions and internal rebellion. Species that had been oppressed for decades saw the Villani evidence and found courage to resist. And at the center of it all, humanity's influence grew in ways no one had predicted. Daeho stood at the viewport of a passenger ship, watching Earth grow larger as they approached. He had not been home in 12 years. The frontier had been his life. But Admiral Suhyun insisted he attend the ceremony. Something about medals and recognition. He would have refused, but Hyejin talked him into it. "You deserve to be honored," she had said. "I am just a cargo hauler. You were a cargo hauler. Now you are a symbol. And symbols have power." Suhyun stood and walked to the window. I am not asking you to be a soldier. I am asking you to do what you already do. See people who need help and help them, but with official backing this time. Resources, support, so you do not have to fight alone. Daeho thought about it, about going back to the frontier, about finding more people like Hijin, more situations where mercy mattered more than profit. Can I think about it? Take your time, but not too much time. The galaxy is watching to see what humanity does next. That evening, Daeho returned to his old ship. The Morning Star had been repaired and upgraded. New engines, better weapons. Medical bay expanded. It looked almost military now, though it still had the soul of a cargo hauler. He walked through the corridors, remembering. The escape from the caravan. Jiwon's sacrifice. The desperate run to Kepler 7. Every decision that brought him here. Feeling nostalgic? Minho asked. Feeling old. You are 36. That is not old for humans. I feel older. He sat in the pilot's seat. It fit perfectly, worn to his shape by years of use. Do you think I should accept Soo-hyun's offer? Do you want my logical analysis or my personal opinion? Personal. Then yes, you should accept. Because you will do it anyway, with or without official backing. At least this way you will have support when everything goes wrong. You think everything will go wrong? I think you attract trouble like a magnet attracts metal. But that is part of your charm, Daeho laughed. Charm, sure. Hyejin found him an hour later. I thought you might be here. Hiding again? Just thinking. She sat in the co-pilot's chair. About Soo-hyun's offer? You heard about that? Everyone heard about it. You are terrible at keeping secrets. She looked around the ship. This is where it started. Where you decided to save me instead of looking away. I still do not know why I did it. Yes, you do. You know exactly why. You just do not like admitting you are a good person. She smiled. But I will let you keep pretending. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Hyejin said, I am going back to the frontier. The Volani refugees need someone to help coordinate with human colonies. Make sure they settle well. Learn the language. Understand the culture. That will be difficult work. All worthwhile work is difficult. She looked at him. I was hoping you might be out there too. Doing your thing. Saving people who need saving. It would be nice to know you are nearby. You want me to accept the commission. I want you to do what you think is right. But yes, I hope you accept. The galaxy needs more people willing to help strangers. Even when it is stupid. Especially when it is stupid. That is when it matters most. The next morning, Daeho returned to Admiral Soo-hyun's office. I will do it. On one condition. What condition? I choose my own crew. And I do things my way. Agreed. As long as your way includes following basic laws and not starting wars. I will try. That is all I ask. 3 weeks later, the Morning Star launched from Earth orbit. Daeho had assembled a small crew, a doctor named Bora who specialized in alien medicine, an engineer named Junho who could fix anything, and Minho, upgraded with new systems and still complaining about everything. Their first mission was simple. Transport supplies to a refugee camp in the Outer Rim, standard cargo run. Daeho knew better than to expect simple, but he hoped for it anyway. They were 2 days from their destination when Minho detected a distress signal. An old transport ship dead in space, life support failing. Standard procedure said to report it and continue the mission, but Daeho was not standard procedure anymore. Change course, he ordered. We are checking it out. I knew you would say that, Minho replied. I already plotted the intercept. The transport ship was in bad shape. Hull breached. Engines dead. Life support at 20%. Daeho docked the Morning Star and suited up. Junho went with him. Inside the transport they found 12 survivors. A mixed group of species, all refugees fleeing persecution. Their ship had been sabotaged by smugglers who took their money and left them to die. We will take you to the nearest station, Daeho said through his translator. An older alien, serpent-like with gold scales, stared at him. You are human. Yes. Then the stories are true. Humans really do help strangers. Sometimes. Why? It was the question everyone asked. Why help when it costs so much? Why care about strangers? Why risk everything for people who could not repay you? Daeho thought about all the complicated answers. About human evolution and social bonding. About moral philosophy and strategic advantage. About the human paradox that made compassion a weapon. But in the end, the answer was simple. Because you need help, he said. The refugees were quiet for a moment. Then one by one they started crying. Relief, gratitude, disbelief that someone actually cared. Daeho and Junho got them aboard the Morning Star. Bora checked them over, treating injuries and malnutrition. They were scared and traumatized, but alive. That was enough. As the ship jumped to FTL heading for the refugee camp where they could find permanent shelter, Daeho stood at the cockpit window watching space blur past. "You did it again?" Minho observed. "Did what?" "Helped people for no logical reason. There was a reason. They needed help." "That is not how most species think." "I know. But it is how humans think, and that is changing the galaxy." Daeho thought about that, about Kepler-7 and the colonists who stood and fought, about G1 who sacrificed everything, about Hyejin who survived and became a symbol, about other humans across the frontier, making their own choices to help strangers. One person could not change the galaxy, but maybe many people, each helping one person could. Maybe that was how real change happened. Not through grand gestures or military might, but through small acts of kindness repeated so many times they became a wave, an unstoppable tide of compassion that slowly reshaped everything it touched. "New distress signal detected," Minho announced. "A colony under attack by raiders. They are requesting assistance." Daeho looked at his crew. Bora nodded. Unyo checked his tools. Even the rescued refugees offered to help however they could. "Course plotted," Minho said. "Waiting for your order." Daeho smiled. This was his life now, racing from crisis to crisis, helping people who needed help, making enemies and allies in equal measure. It was exhausting and dangerous and probably stupid. But it was right. "Change course," he ordered. "Someone needs us." The Morning Star turned toward the new crisis, toward more strangers who needed saving, toward more impossible odds and unlikely victories. Behind them, across the galaxy, other humans were making the same choice. Helping when help was needed, standing when others would walk away, proving again and again that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their tactics. It was their stubborn, illogical, beautiful refusal to let suffering go unanswered. The galaxy was learning that now. Learning that humans extended the word us to include everyone. Learning that compassion could not be defeated because it created more of itself with every act. Learning that when a human asks, "What if we helped?" the answer changed everything. Somewhere in the frontier, Hyejin looked up at the stars and smiled. She knew Daeho was out there, knew he was helping someone, knew he was living up to the Villani title they had given him, Life-Bringer. The one who walks in darkness, and where they step, light follows, and the light was spreading, one choice at a time, one person at a time, one act of mercy at a time, until the whole galaxy learned a simple truth that humans had known all along. Helping people was not weakness. It was strength. It was survival. It was evolution. It was what made them human. And in a universe built on self-interest and survival of the fittest, that made humans the most dangerous species of all. Because they did not conquer with weapons, they conquered with a question. What if we helped? And the answer was changing everything. Do not want medals, too bad. Sometimes we have to let people say thank you. Earth was still beautiful, blue and green and white hanging in space like a jewel. As the ship descended through the atmosphere, Daeho felt something strange in his chest. Relief. Maybe even joy. He was home. The ceremony was held at the Human Congress building in Geneva. Representatives from 30 different civilizations attended. Daeho was uncomfortable in a formal uniform, feeling like an imposter among diplomats and military leaders. But Hyejin stood beside him, wearing traditional Villani dress, her bioluminescent markings glowing softly. Admiral Suhyun presented him with the Star of Valor, humanity's highest civilian honor. For extraordinary courage and moral conviction in the face of impossible odds, she read from the citation.